Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Community Preservation Commission. In the
Jim, I can
minutes.
barely hear you in here.
Okay, I don't know how you turn up your volume, but
Jack is
I don't know what to tell you.
It's getting better.
Okay.
I know that Sandy's cat every now and then goes in front of my microphone.
Yep. I'm on
But
the phone.
I will say that this is a meeting that is both on Zoom and in person. The instructions for the Zoom part of the meeting are posted on the town website, so I'll just remind people that we'll be going through this. The open meeting law is in effect. It's being conducted remotely or partially remotely on the aged governor's order. And I think everybody is by now knows how that works. So I'm gonna leave that alone. If you have any questions as to how we Zoom, please let me know. So I'm gonna start by calling the opening roll call. Kristen Belanger. No. Sandy Brock.
Here.
Sandy's here. Jim Gallagher is here. Ken Holberger.
Here.
Brooke Paget.
Here.
Paul Scarlett.
Scarlet Eye.
All right. John Stevens is.
Yeah. I'm here.
All right. Richard Whitney.
I was just on the phone with him. He was trying to get on Zoom. I'll send him the phone number to directly call in instead if he can.
Okay, we'll check back with him. And Justin Wood.
I am here.
Justin Wood is here. So the only one we're missing is Kristen Belanger, and we think that Richard Whitney's on his way. All righty. The treasurer's report came out. It was just sent, and it's good when it's green, right, Ken?
I can screen that. Let me give it a try. Okay. We'll start with this year, FY '22. There's no change from last time. I was not here, but the report did show last time that we got an additional state match of $23,000. Good. That was good news. The only item for fiscal '22 is the special town meeting. That's right here. That's where we transfer the entire affordable housing reserve to the Affordable Housing Trust. That's that. So just to highlight what happened, what is happening in fiscal '22, we had revenues of we had a carryover revenues from 2021 of a little over $500,000. We had about $770,000 of new revenue, including the entire state match. And so that added up to $1.3 million. That seems to get a little higher every year. So we had bond payments, $142,000. We had the $24,000 of expense, and that will be adjusted to be the actual number when the year closes, but it'll be close to that. And we gave out grants of $322,000. And so that it's expected to leave us with $816,000 plus or minus to carry over into fiscal 2023. So fiscal 2023, this is the town meeting in which we estimate the revenues, make an estimate for the state match and the interest, and then add those up, take 10% and allocate them to each of the three designated reserves. And so Mary, Gloria, and I got together briefly, and she had made some estimates for the surcharge revenue. She decided to use the initial state match from the prior year as our estimate for this year. which was 32.3%. And so here we have the revenue estimated to be just over $560,000, a state match of $180,000, and about $20,000 worth of interest based on history. So that gives us a little over $750,000 of new revenue this coming year in our estimate. And our estimates have traditionally been conservative, and I think we've always made a little more than that. So that gives us reserve numbers of 76,328 thereabouts. And so those will go into the warrant articles. And then this year, we have more than enough money in the designated reserves to cover the two long-term bonds that we have. So I'm recommending that we pay for the bonds out of the reserves this year. So that leaves $510,000 more and less for the initial budgeted reserve. And that's another number that goes into the warrant. Now, I do want to say that these numbers are not final yet, but they're not going to be materially different. So these numbers will be probably could be adjusted in the coming days before the actual warrant goes out, but they're close. So the undesignated fund balance carrying over from the prior fiscal year is going to be about $650,000. Now, there's a lot of minor adjustments that go back and forth on this number. So until the July 1st comes upon us, and then the accountants go through all their adjustments and close the books, we won't know what that number is. But $650,000 is a strong estimate. So that those two numbers together, add up to $1,159,000, about $1,160,000. A good estimate for the amount of money we have for any purpose, to make grants for any purpose. The next section is the reserve funds. Adding the new 10% amount to the amount that we had carried over from last year gives us these amounts for the three reserves: 180,000, 135, and 76. So, like as I said before, I'm suggesting that we take the bond payments out of the open space and recreation reserve and out of the historical reserve. And so that will reduce them to 120,000 and 60,000. And here I'm speculating that a year from now, in May of next year, we're going to transfer the entire balance of the affordable housing reserve to the trust. So with all those revenues and expenditures added up, that leaves us with $1,340,000 of funds to work with this year if we wanted to spend everything. So just to summarize, we're starting the year with $816,000 coming in from last year, $760,000 worth of revenue. It gives us $1,580,000. We have the bond payments. The Affordable Housing Trust is the only grant we can speculate. Our expenses, leaving us with, again, $1,340,000 to spend this year. So we're in good shape. I think we have enough money to do what we probably will want to do.
Do you have any questions? Do I have a resolution for a vote?
Just before the resolution, I want to tell Joanne, I see Rich in as attendees. I believe that's Rich Whitney. Not as
Rich
attendees.
Whitney is here. Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move
So
that
moved.
yes. I move
Seconded?
we accept the treasurer's report. Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. We'll do a roll call for this. Sandy Brock?
Yes.
Sandy is yes. Jim Gallagher is aye. Ken Holberger?
Aye.
Aye. Brooke Paget?
Aye.
Brooke Paget, aye. Paul Scarlett?
Scarlet, aye.
Paul Scarlett, aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens, aye. Richard Whitney?
I just promoted him to panelist.
Richard Whitney.
I don't see him as panelist yet.
I know. I'll keep doing it.
Okay, we'll come back to him. Justin Wood?
Aye.
Justin Wood, aye. We'll just carry the treasurer's report, mark it unanimous. I was reluctant at the beginning when we took the original count here to say that our staff specialist, Joanne Duncan, is with us as well. Do we have there we go. Do we have anything on the meeting minutes? Anyone want to make?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes as drafted with any amendments to be discussed.
Is
Second.
there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Sandy Brock?
Yes.
Sandy Brock, yes. Jim Gallagher is yes. Ken Holberger?
Yes.
Ken Holberger, yes. Brooke Paget?
Yes.
Brooke Paget, yes. Paul Scarlett?
Scarlet, aye.
Paul Scarlett, aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens, aye. Richard Whitney?
Yes.
Richard Whitney, yes. Justin Wood?
Yes.
No
Wood is
camera, but
yes.
I'm here.
So we'll move along to the South Grafton Community House repainting.
Jim, Evan
Yeah.
sent an email earlier today. He's at the fire chief search committee meeting. He asked if we could put him at the end of the project.
Okay.
He'll be in around 7:30.
All right, well, and did he give any reason why they're more important than us? All right, we'll come back to
No, I left
that.
for you to ask him.
Okay, the phase 2 of the Universal Accessibility Project.
You can come right up here if you want. Yeah. We can take, if and Daniel, we can put another chair up too if you want.
I just wanted to introduce, I'm Ted Bove, and I'm currently the president of the congregation at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton.
Okay, if you're not near a microphone, we're not picking you up.
Let me switch places.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
And if you could just identify yourself for the recording, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm Ted Bove, I'm president of the congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton. And next to me is Suzanne Mass, who's been working on this grant application. And behind me in the audience is our Reverend Daniel Gregoire, who serves as minister of the church. Basically,
Welcome.
thank you. Welcome. First of all, I want to thank the committee, and in particular Paul Scarlett, for the help he gave us in putting this application together. It was really made the whole process a lot easier for us, having that assistance and being able to walk through it. It's a pretty straightforward application. Basically, we're asking for $15,000 that we would match with $3,000 for a total project cost of $18,000. And it's to do a very detailed design and planning project for a vertical wheelchair lift and shaftway inside the building, our church building. And that's to get people from the first floor to the second floor where the sanctuary is located. And because it's an old building, it's going to require the structural engineer or somebody with some expertise to take a look at it and make sure that the old building can in fact support the weight of this vertical lift. May require some shoring of some of the support in the floor of the church. So they'll have to go down to the basement and figure that out. They'll have to figure out a landing at the first floor and then a landing at the second floor so that there can be proper ingress and egress and there'll be room to get everything in there. So it's it requires definitely some skill we don't have in-house for sure. So we need to go out and hire somebody to do that, with the idea that once we have that work in hand, we'll be able to proceed with constructing the vertical wheelchair lift. We'll have to do some fundraising before we can construct it, but this will give us an idea of how much it'll cost. It'll give us a lot of information that would go into a building permit that would be needed. And it will, take us this next step in our plan to make our old building become accessible so people can get in and out. And that is important because an accessible building is a viable building. And we need that in order to go forward to invite the public in and for our members as well. So that's kind of the basic quick snapshot. I know, Suzanne, you had a couple of corrections.
Right.
I have to see.
Excuse me. Hi, everyone. When we submitted the proposal, there were two things that we weren't quite clear on, little details that you asked for in the application. And the first one is on page 1. It was the lot number, and the best we could discern, it was 73. But it, in fact, your staff here helped us. It is lot 74-0-3. So wanted to make sure we had it correct. I think you all know where we are, but we wanted to give you the right information.
Yep.
And the second correction is on the very last page, the last question. You asked about lifetime costs. It's not for this particular project, but in the long run, the installation of such a lift would require maintenance annually. And we estimated that it was 500, but couldn't seem to get the numbers in exactly. But in fact, it turned out to be exactly $500 with an inspection fee every 2 years at $200, so $100 per year plus $200 per visit for maintenance twice a year. So it came out to $500 per year. So my understanding is we should resubmit that, and with any other answers to questions that you might have this evening, we'll resubmit the application with those corrections.
All right, one of the things that we want to point out is that, and I'm sure Paul will go over this with you, is one of the things that we were just alerted to was a court case that was brought in Acton, Massachusetts, concerning CPC funds that went to a religious organization. And what the key is here, and we really need to be precise, if we're looking for renovations or corrections or access as it affects the parishioners only, then that's not going to fly. However, if we're talking about a historic place, if we're talking about a place where people vote, anything like that, anything along that area is what we want to be making sure that we're pointing out in the application. And I'm sure that Paul, after you've just inflated his ego, I'm sure that he can go over that with you as well. Okay?
Okay.
All right, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments there?
Yeah, just briefly. First, I did think I saw some in the application process that I read for this, but I don't remember where now. That there was called out that it's more than just parishioners, using this space, and this elevator would help. For every access point on this elevator is going to help people that are not just parishioners. That's
Right.
that's my understanding from what I read here. So that's just to call out that from what I remember reading. The question I do have is where's the 18,000 number chosen from? Is that an assumption? Is that a single quote you might have gotten that for doing the work? I know you're only asking us for 15 of that, but I want to make sure that we bring that to town meeting that you don't end up getting quotes that are about 20,000. You can't do it because you're just a few shy. That kind of a question.
So we consulted with a civil engineer and got some rough estimates. Obviously, we don't have a precise bid for the project because that would be premature.
Yes.
And on page 8, we have a breakdown of the $18,000. That again, approximate numbers
Yeah.
with a contingency in there. So I guess at this point, based on the information we have, we feel that's a good number to go forward with.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Justin. I know that we had brought that up even before we had the influence of a court case. And I'm sure that that's exactly why that was put in there. Does anyone else have any questions here? All right, what I just
Yes,
want to make sure.
excuse me, Jim.
Yeah,
I have one. I don't have that that application in front of me, but I heard the word maintenance a couple of times. And I'm not sure whether the maintenance funds for maintenance are in this proposal or not, because you also know that the CPA is not allowed to pay for maintenance.
The reference to maintenance, Ken, was because it's in our application. Like, what is it going to cost to maintain this, so that
Oh.
people are thinking about that. The request
Okay.
before us has nothing to do with maintenance. It's providing accessibility to the building.
Thank you.
all right, what would just remind you is that we will be having a public hearing before the town meeting. And we would hope, if you could, that you just could come back in case anyone else has any other questions, and be ready at town meeting to be there and to defend your request. So
Yep, we plan.
if you
to
don't
be
have
there.
any other questions, thank you so much for coming in.
Great.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Jim, may I just, Suzanne, if you
Yeah.
don't mind just sending me the updated application, and that's what I'll put on the website then.
Tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you.
Good. All right. Thanks.
Thanks
Thank you,
again.
everybody.
Have a good evening.
Okay, the South Grafton Elementary Playground Accessibility. Is someone there?
We hope Joanne
Are we
will
on
share this.
Zoom?
We have in our presence Jay, the superintendent, and Amy Marr.
Okay, and if you could just, thank you for that, but if you could just identify yourself.
Hi, everybody.
Uh,
Yes, my name's Jay Cummings. I'm the superintendent of schools. And to my,
I'm Amy Marr. I'm the school committee chair.
all right.
Thank you. And what is it that you wanted to add or explain or pass on that wasn't in the application?
If it's okay with you, Mr. Gallagher, I was going to go through just a handful of slides very quickly, providing just a general overview. And in that overview, I'll explain what changed.
Okay, that will not be allowed if you call me Mr. Gallagher again, though.
All right, Jim?
Thank you.
I just don't have
I've got it up, I think. So
perfect.
just tell me when to.
Oh, you can go right ahead. So in a general sense, this project that we've been for years looking to have completed is based on three major issues at the South Grafton Elementary School playground. It's largely inaccessible to any individual with special needs. There is no ramp. The playground structure, just to get on it, there are some significant steps, very poor drainage, which leads to a host of issues, including a very uneven play surface on the entire playground, and the pavement that's around or next to the actual playground area is cracked, uneven. We've had students have injuries due to the old aged pavement. I had 4 photos just to quickly give you a sense of them. So here's the main structure. It is on wood chips. You can't really see it here, but there are undulations like ski moguls throughout. Secondary apparatus is here on the playground. This illustrates, not particularly well, but the next photo illustrates the issues with the paving. Year after year, for a couple of decades, we've been just patching as we can. And then finally, one additional photo, again, to show kind of what we're looking at. So it's very hard to access even the playground surface, but once you get there, there are a host of hurdles that anybody with a special need faces. So originally, on the other way. No, it's okay.
I'm sorry, which way?
No,
I think you just read.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
For the past 2 years, we have applied for grants, state grants, through the Municipal Americans with Disabilities Act. They annually offer grants. We've done this in partnership with the Grafton Disabilities Commission. Unfortunately, both times our project was rejected. They have a couple $1 million and they have hundreds and hundreds of projects. So we didn't receive funding. On the plus side, this week I confirmed that we are going to receive capital funding for a number of pieces of this project. Not the entire project won't be covered, but numerous pieces, which I'll show you in the next slide. Actually, you can keep going. So the architectural design for the handicapped ramp, the cost of the retaining wall, the fencing, and that ramp, the drainage and the paving are all going to be covered in this year's round of capital funding, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's about $145,000. That leaves us with the need for a rubberized playground surface at a cost of approximately $95,000, and one which will be the most significant playground structure at the playground that's accessible to all children at a cost estimated at $40,000, leaving us combined with a total of $135,000. So obviously, when the proposal was submitted, we didn't have confirmation on the capital pieces. So we are requesting $135,000 in total for this project as opposed to the $280,000. And lastly, we just wanted to add that we're in very good company with this continual struggle to provide accessible playgrounds to not only students of Grafton, but children of Grafton. These 27 communities have done the same thing with significant upgrades to one or more playground areas that they have at schools through funding via CPA. And that's over the past 2 years, or since 2019. And with that, I can take any questions you might have.
So
Thank you. We just want to also acknowledge that we did receive a letter of support from the Disability Commission saying that they're certainly in favor of this. I thank you for that last slide, because when we spoke about this the first time, I was hesitant about some of the things that went on the school for two reasons. One, because it wasn't being paid for by the town, and then secondly, because it would not be accessible during school hours. Well, not to pun here, but the lady to your left schooled me on the accessibility of the playground and the attempt at getting the funding. So I thank her for that. I really didn't have any other questions. Do we have any other questions on the floor?
yeah, I have a comment, meaning that kind of struck me here is for past projects that we've gone to town meeting and coming before the board, we talk about the overall cost of the project, and then what other contributions that they get from money from elsewhere. So we're not thinking about, at least I'm not thinking about this as a $135,000 project. I'm thinking of it as a $280,000 project, and one that the school department's getting funding more than 50% of the project they're requesting. So they're getting 145 from capital from the town. Town meeting is assuming, of course, but that's what how I'm looking at it, and that is probably as good of a match as we've seen in a while as far as project cost matches from other people, from other departments in other areas.
Justin is as right as rain. That's something that we find that we show how much it costs, and then show how other money is coming in, and shows that you're working hard on that project. John Stevens, did you have something?
Just a question regarding the new structure. Is it replacing a structure, or is this an additional structure to the two structures that are currently in place?
It would replace the oldest structure, which I do have a photo of. It was the first one shown.
I think, John,
The
do you
red
want me to
one?
show it? Can you see it if I?
Is it the one on the right?
It's the one with the steps. Right?
Yeah, I think it was the
one
first.
with the
first
steps.
Okay,
photo.
yeah, that one has
Yeah,
problems.
yeah, that
That's
one.
the oldest one.
Okay.
I got the color right.
Yes, you did.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Absolutely.
So I apologize to the committee that I didn't have this ahead of time, but
To make an announcement
it's all
in the
Evan's
House.
fault. I'm sorry.
My bad.
I have a letter of support from the Grafton Special Education Parent Advisory Council, which I can send to the committee electronically, but we did bring paper copies for those who are in attendance. So it's a very nice letter, and we really appreciate their support of this project. Obviously, we want the students at South Grafton Elementary to have the same experience as the students who go to North Grafton Elementary, as well as the children who live in those neighborhoods. One of the best things about this project is that as a mom who lives near the school, I see grandparents and parents taking their kids to the playground outside of school hours. And it's not the easiest thing in the world, especially for a lot of grandparents with mobility issues. So this is something that would definitely address that issue, in addition to the whole learning experience for the students. So,
Thank you, Amy.
thank you.
So the same thing that
Jim,
you
I got
just
a
heard
couple
us say,
Jim, I have a
excuse me?
question. I have a question.
right?
I have a question.
All right, I don't, who?
Brooke.
Oh, all right. I didn't see you.
He's hiding behind
I'm
me.
hiding, right?
Brooke, did you have a question?
I do, Jim. I have a question.
All right.
When we passed the CPC, I know you have that last slide, and I don't know how CPC was passed in those towns, but I know we had lots of debates on town floor. And it wasn't to supplement budgets. That was the main thing. This is not a place to go. Fire department, school department, police department didn't get a cruiser, didn't get what they wanted. They come to CPC. That money is not for that. I'm glad to see a lot of the stuff that I thought had no chance of getting funded are off. The last two are the only potential things to get funded. It still gives me some pause though, because again, the reason CPC was initiated, it was to fund things that wouldn't go through the normal course of a budget. Now the school obviously has funded the first one, or the town has funded the first 5 things, so it's part of their budget. So what they're saying is this year we're not going to do it, maybe next year they would pick up the other 2. Now I know that doesn't work in the way you're building a playground. You need it all. And I want every playground to be handicap accessible. I mean, this committee supported a handicap park,
You mean the community park?
community park, right? Which, not to throw you under the bus, Jay, because it wasn't you, but the school department took away from the town and should have replaced and never has. And that's a responsibility that the town has not taken on, even though we had a whole park paid for behind the library, so which would have fulfilled a lot of these issues and would have been available 300 or whatever number of days it's not snowed in. Unlike a school park, which is only going to be used after 4 for the few months that it's available. So I'm not totally against all of this. It's just we are opening up a door that when town budgets seem to get tight, they're going to come to CPC. And when we start funding town budgets, you said this has been on a couple times. So if it's been on a couple times for CPI, it almost, was it on CPI?
No.
It wasn't on CPI?
No, I
Okay.
just applied for state grants.
Okay,
for
so
2 years.
was it ever in your regular budget? Like requests?
No, it could have been on the capital.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah,
got
well,
millions
okay.
on
giant
everything
list of
under the
things.
sun's under
Right,
the
right.
capital, but
Yeah.
sure.
But I guess
aside from
that's
that-
what I don't want to get into, where the fire department asked for X. Town administrator says we can't afford it. It goes to the bottom of the list 4 years in a row, and then they come here. That's not what CPA is for. That's not how we sold it to the town. I don't want it to be a bait and switch where we said one thing. Now, there's probably very few people who were at that town meeting who are still around, to be honest with you. But that wasn't the goal of CPA. It's to do the things such as the Hassan messed it up, or to build a park for everyone, or to fix up maybe a historical building in the common. I'm only one person here, and I'm not totally against the project. Again, it's the last two things. I'm much happier on those last two. I just think we're opening up a door here that we got to pay attention to, because if we're going to do that, we're going to have a lot of town chairmans of their committees coming in asking for things, which is not. Again, I don't need to repeat myself. It's not what this was intended for. And again, I know there's a list. I don't know how many of those. I looked on some of that list, and there's some definitely school parks. I don't know if there's still schools. I mean, Perry Hills School Park is no longer a school, so I don't know how many fit into that category. I also don't know how many people said, you know, they're tight as anything. They've all agreed to do it. I don't think we're in that position. We've had 2 school overrides. There's money around. We're taking the money we have as a slush fund to do extraordinary projects, and now we're starting to fund town budgets with it at a time that I think the school is fairly flush, but that's just me.
All right. Well, having said that, let me just reiterate the fact that if these are requests that fit within the guidelines of the CPA, then it's not anything special. Also, we had the folks in here that had the capital planning lists, as you may recall, and we got together with them and saw if there were anything that was on their list that could fall under the CPA, and there really wasn't. So I think we've kind of covered our bases here. And if if another school comes up with a similar situation, and it fits the criteria of the CPA, I would hope that we'd consider that as well. Anyone else?
Jim,
Jim, I have
Yes.
a question.
I don't want to respond to
John
Stevens, go ahead.
2 questions. One is, sorry, I didn't ask the first time. Is the rubberized section, is it going to be the entire playground, or just under the new structure that's going to be a handicap accessible structure?
It's almost the entire. They're going to change. If we move forward with it, we would change the shape and the layout of the playground, but essentially 95% coverage.
Okay. And then a second question that in Brooks' discussion made me think, because we did have a little over $200,000 that was intended for the super park that got taken away. I don't know where, Amy, have you had a chance to look? Is that money still at the town? Because we had money for that very thing. So that might be another source for projects that you guys, for this one or another one, but I don't know what's happened to that money.
I'm sorry, Jim, may I have the floor?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, first up to your question there, John. I feel that's a little out of left field, where that wasn't even brought up when we had the community park discussion here. No one was concerned with where that old money went when we were enthusiastically pushing for the community park at town meeting and at this board. Secondly,
I'm not
I
sure
think,
what that
I
even
think
meant.
he's talking about I'm sorry to interject.
the money from the town for the old park that was initially set aside. I took as John just to mean.
That was on the capital, the town's capital budget, not the CPA money that had been allocated.
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right,
yeah,
I thought you were confusing those.
No, I'm definitely not confusing those. The other points I wanted just to make briefly to your points, Brooke. You said that we were pushing for a park that everyone can use, as opposed to this park not being a park that everyone can use. Everyone can use it. The school's closed multiple months in the summer. The the playground's open on the weekends. It's open after school time. All the students that do go to the school can use it. All the community can use it when the school's not in session. So everyone can use this park. And I really should say everyone only wants its disability accessible. And then the other point I have is that you mentioned it's like a bait and switch with the CPA funds and how we did it for the town. My understanding and recollection of how it was presented and how I understood it from the start is you can't take things that are going to be funded by the town, pull them off and say CPA fund these instead. This is things that the town is unable to fund. The town has not had it in our budget to fund these things. So the CPA, if it's within the power of the CPA to actually fund these items, we can then present it to the town. The town can vote on it, say, do we actually want to use the CPA funds for this project? The town people can then make a decision on, yes, I feel that is a valid use of our CPA funds, or no, I do not. And that is something
Okay.
that I think we should do.
All right, thank you.
and Jim,
Again, we remember, what?
I would just say we also do have hands in.
Well, you said briefly.
Jim, it's me,
All right, who's me?
Amy.
Amy.
Yes.
All I see is the back of your head, Amy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I had my hand up and Justin was trying to recognize me. So, I wanted to address the list of schools. What I did was I went through the CPA database and I looked for certain keywords: school, playground, drainage, accessibility, structure. Those were the projects that came up when I did those searches. So they were all current school playgrounds. I even went and looked and made sure they were actually done. So they are done. As far as the availability of the playground, there are only 30 hours in a week that our school playgrounds are not available. Kids are only in school 6 hours a day. So that's really very minor. And when you consider all of the other things that the CPC has funded in the past, they're not all accessible 24/7 either. There are times when the Lions Club is closed, when the gates are closed, nobody can go use that facility. There are times when the townhouse is not available. So I think that we get really far down this road of being super specific, and I think we're just totally overthinking it. It is a school, yes. It is also a recreation facility for the children and the parents and the grandparents of our town.
Okay, thank you for that. Again, a reminder that when we will come to a public hearing, and a lot of this will be discussed again, so we would ask you if you would please return with that during the public hearing. There's going to be a lot of background that everyone will be looking at, and that's always a good thing. And at the same time, remember that when we go to town meeting, we would hope that you would be there to enthusiastically support your article. And then, as Justin points out, all we do is we try to make sure that it's something that is covered by the CPA, and then we help you make your presentation, and then basically it's the town's decision, as always. So see you at the public hearing, and then again at town meeting.
Jim.
Okay?
Jim.
Thank you.
Jim. Amy.
Who now?
It's me,
Who?
Joanne. Do
Okay.
you mind submitting an updated application for me with the correct?
Go ahead.
Dr. Cummings will be doing that.
Probably.
Thank you. Just with the new funding.
Tonight or tomorrow?
Oh, it can be in a week. I just want to get it on the website.
I'll have it tomorrow.
That's
You gotta
okay.
call,
Thank you.
gotta call off school tomorrow.
All right.
Thank
I'm
you both.
trying to
Thank
move
you,
this meeting
everybody.
along in case you haven't noticed. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Have a good night.
Jim doesn't waste
Excuse
his
me.
time.
And now we're gonna move along to, you know what happened? I got the shakes, and I keep hitting the button, and I get the screen for how to ditch the 40-minute limit instead of seeing the board there.
Jim, next is
There
Evan
you are.
with the South Grafton Community House.
Okay, Evan, before you start, I didn't know whether or not you were aware that the trash that was usually picked up on Thursday was going to be picked up on Friday, but that's going to be moved till Saturday. And then if there is trash on Friday, they'll try to get to it on Saturday, but it might not all be picked up, just so you know.
All right, I appreciate the heads up on that.
Thank you, thank you. And I guess we're talking with you about what are we talking about? The South Grafton Community House repainting.
Correct.
Okay, what do we got?
Do you want me to share my screen and go through the app?
You should be able to.
Okay, let me do that real quick. Share the right thing.
I got ditched the 40-minute limit again.
All right. Let me get down to the Grafton Community House. All right, so we are, you good, Jim?
Yep.
Okay, so we're requesting $50,000 to cover the cost of repainting the South Grafton Community House. It's all exterior. Probably be some minor repairs to the wood trim. As you can see from the pictures, there is some pretty wonky spots. Looking at a lot of degradation. Some of the clapboarding has started to peel, and in a lot of places you can see we're down to bare wood, which is starting to hold moisture. So we'd be looking to start this project, immediately after July 1, and it probably would be done by the fall. I don't think it's going to be that big of a list. And so we would just...
So this is a restoration of a historical building, right?
Correct.
It's not maintenance.
Yep, and I
Okay.
do have, if you go on to the, I had sent the link. If you look at that, I do have a PDF that should pop up, which I don't know if you're seeing. Yep, which goes through. I'm sure you already all know this, but this is the historic documentation that backs up that house being on the register or that building being on the register and whatnot.
Excellent. As long as we don't have maintenance on there.
No. That's pretty much it. It's a pretty straightforward project. I don't have a lot of dog and pony show for that.
Ken, are you raising your hand?
You muted, Ken.
You're muted, Ken.
John has his hand up too, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't understand how this is not maintenance. It seems like it's clearly maintenance to me.
So if that's directed at me, there's a difference between maintenance and restoration. So restoration is what you do to a historic building to restore it to its previous grandeur, where maintenance would be, simple and probably a lot smaller in scope.
But painting is, I took a look at the Community Preservation Act and its definitions, and I guess painting has to be done every so many years, and you can let it go bad, and it's a little harder to paint, but it's still just painting. And almost all paint jobs require some, repair of rotted wood. Yeah, my house does that every time I paint my house, I got to do that. But it's not restoration, it's just painting, and you have to do it every 10 years.
So,
Okay, the question here is, your house is not a historical landmark.
It will be in 80 more years. But it's still just,
But I think that's the big difference there.
Still painting.
Is that, painting is painting, and I think it's usually considered as a maintenance item.
And
But if
painting
you really-
requires scraping, and
Yep.
it requires
But
you to fix
you
it.
gotta look at what's being done, where it's being done though. And I think that's something that we'll talk about more during the hearing. John Stevens, you're on.
That's also my concern. I don't have a concern about repairing rotten wood and painting rotten wood, but painting is maintenance. It doesn't matter if it's a structure, new structure. Painting is painting is painting, and that's maintenance. So that is a concern that I would have. And so I'd want to be very confident to understand what the restoration is, if it is restoration rather than painting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Today. So, painting of historic buildings is accessible or is applicable under CPA very commonly, very clearly. It happens in towns throughout the Commonwealth every year. I've done it on 6 different ones through CPA. So this is not new, uncommon, novel, or not applicable. It's clearly a CPC eligible project.
And Mr. Chair, Justin Wood, you want to recognize me?
Yep, I've seen you. I know who you are.
I just wanted to say I was just scrolling the CPA database just now and sorting by more recent so that we filter out things that were eventually discovered to not actually be CPA fundable, and I counted easily 4 or 5 within the last year, 2021, that the description is basically like there's a lighthouse project that says provide funding to preserve the lighthouse that was built in 1877. They will paint the exterior of the lighthouse and make necessary repairs to preserve the structure and historic integrity of the lighthouse. That is pretty much identical to what we're doing to the community house, is what the proposal is. And I was with Ken when I first read the title, and we're painting. Okay, well, that's not really that's maintenance. And then I read more into it, and to me, this is clearly restoration.
Jim, both Sandy and Richard have their hands up. I don't know that
They
you
do.
can see that. Yes. So Richard was
So
first.
we'll do
and then
Sandy first because she's alphabetically first.
That's great. And the only thing I would say is, I guess I'm not, just because other towns do it doesn't really sway me a lot. To me is what are the requirements? And so this cannot be that big of a question that we cannot check with the state to make sure that painting is, because I agree that painting to me is maintenance. Now, I may be incorrect, just because a lot of other towns say that painting, they allow it, to me is there's got to be a better way to make a pretty definitive decision with the help of the state to say, yeah, no, don't worry about it. Painting is definitely part of CPA funding. That would be my only concern.
Okay, thank you. I always get nervous when I agree with Justin, but I think that what you're painting is the issue here, and maybe we can ask the lovely and talented Joanne Duncan to make a call before we get to the public hearing.
Yep.
All
Call
right.
Stuart.
Who else had their hand up?
I did, Jim.
Okay,
Richard.
listen, this is only a half-hour show, Rich.
No problem.
Okay, buddy, you're on.
Okay, the thing is, I do believe painting is warranted here, and we should do it, because underneath the wood there, underneath the painting of that building, I go along with the wood, because you're gonna have to match that wood of getting some older stuff instead of this new clapboard. So I think it falls into our criteria of doing it.
Okay.
Also, the windowsills, let me just say this, the windowsills, you're gonna have, the way they look in the pictures that Evan showed us, guarantee they're rotted, and to replace those, you're gonna have to use old wood. So I think this falls into our category, and I'm for that 100%.
All right, well, that's the kind of discussion that we'll have at the time when we decide whether or not this goes to town meeting. But I think it'll be very helpful for Joanne to get an opinion of that, and it'll make it a lot easier for us to go forward. Anyone else?
Paul.
Okay, Evan? Thank you.
Paul,
Oh, is someone else
You
raised-
got Paul and Brooke, Mr. Chairman, both want to
Oh,
speak.
my
Are
God.
Do you have somewhere to go? You must have someplace to go.
You got to look
No,
at the
I mean,
big
let's
one. where
no,
there's
let's
multiple
move it
people.
along. Let's move it along. Okay, who is next?
I believe
You
it
two
was me,
decide.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Alphabetically.
Okay.
Mr. Scarlett. So we replaced the windows on that building within my tenure on this committee. So I'm wondering when that was. You're talking about rotted windowsills, which I find surprising on windows that we replaced. And I thought we replaced them all, but maybe there were only some of them that we replaced. Can we get clarification?
Yeah, but
on
just
that?
by looking at them, they are.
Yeah.
I don't think we did all of them.
Yeah.
I think there were specific ones that I think there was something about the kind of glass and everything that we had to get a special kind of mounting and everything. I don't think we did them all.
That's what I thought. So Jim, I just have, just to be consistent, Evan, that was was that on the CPI? That I saw you pull something.
Yeah,
up that said capital.
everything goes on the capital plan. Every single
Yeah,
thing.
so just, I mean, in some ways,
wait.
I'm gonna. Yeah.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
So it's on the capital plan because every expenditure that the town uses goes on the capital plan. Then you identify a funding source. And so it'll show, every single thing should show up on the capital plan for transparency with the public.
Okay. I guess.
Are you going back to the budget thing?
Well, in some ways, I'm going to flip it around though, because I feel like the school has a designated budget and they have monies,
yeah.
where the South Grafton Community House doesn't have anybody. They're a lone wolf. So I was just asking Paul. Previously, it was brought up by an entity that was down there. Skip brought it up. So he didn't have the issue, he would, and I wasn't on the board here, but he would come in and say, we want to fix up the community house. And people say, sure, because it's exactly what CPC is for. Now we pulled it in underneath the town because, as I said, it doesn't have anybody. So I'm sort of arguing against myself from the last one because I don't think they have somebody.
Right. Yeah.
But be consistent in my head, it was on there, and that is a thing for me that once it's been given to somebody and someone has a budget, figure out your budget and pay for the stuff you need. Don't come to this kitty that's here to do stuff that isn't under normal budgets. And I guess, as I said, I'm going to talk against myself because I feel like maybe the South Grafton Community House doesn't have a budget, right? They don't have, unlike the school, which has 70% of the budget in the town.
So I'm going to argue against myself. Because, so the idea of something not having a budget is a fallacy. It has a budget if I give it a budget, or if we give it a budget, or not. It's either, you can fund anything. Anything is within the town's budget if you give something else up. And so it's the community's priority. So you're using CPA as a side kitty. It's not. It's a tax that's assessed on people annually, and it's used to do the town's will. And so it really, to me, makes no difference if it's a playground at a school, a playground in a community park, if it is a funding of a preservation of a historic building. That's exactly, in my opinion, what CPA is for, is to do all of those things regardless of where you originally thought the money would be good for.
Which I think is the danger of what you just said. Because what they should have done, and what was talked about at town meeting, is raise the taxes. If you want to raise taxes to do all those things, do it, be upfront about it, and say this is what we need. Instead, they said, no, we're going to have this little fund to the side, a CPC fund that's going to get funded by the town. Plus, the state's going to throw in some extra money because it's for things that make the town special, I guess. I mean, this town would have never put in boat ramps. We'd have never done the Hassanamissa thing. We would never have done, a restoration of cemeteries. Because just as you said,
Right.
there's only so much money.
Right.
So you're going to say, oh, we're going to hire a teacher, or are we going to go fix up, the townhouse? No, we're not going to fix that thing up, and it would have
Okay,
never happened.
I think the point, before we start saying the same thing, the point that needs to be made is that we need to look solely at the Community Preservation Act and ask, is this a project that is covered by the CPA? And it doesn't matter who else could be paying for it. If this is covered by the CPA, then there is a right to come forward, ask for the money. We'll talk about it, we'll debate it, and then again, we'll go to town meeting, and town meeting is the ones that will determine if that's how we use the money. John Stevens, did you have another question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is there an enterprise account for the community house? And if so, I know with COVID, there's probably not nearly as many rentals. What happens to the money from the rentals in terms of the maintenance of that property?
So it goes into a revolving account. And, we use that for, kind of smaller maintenance projects. So problems with the boiler, interior issues, small roof leak, gutter repair, smaller things. And that's primarily what it appears to have been used for.
In a good year, not a great year, a good year, what would it normally, the revenue be for the community house? Do you have any idea?
I didn't pull it, but my recollection is that it's under $5,000 a year.
So that's not a source of cash at all for this. That's my point. I was trying to see if there was money from the actual the use of the building that could be used for this, but this exceeds far exceeds that account.
Yeah, yeah. In my opinion, yes. I mean, I stated at the beginning, you know, CPC is for historic preservation, rehabilitation, or restoration, and I think this project meets that threshold.
Good. Okay, thank you very much for coming in on your busy days. You're always running around, and here it is nighttime. You should be home with your family. So
Oh,
get out of
they're
here.
all in bed. I'm good for another couple hours. So it's fine.
Okay,
All
good.
right. Thank you all
Very
for having
good.
me. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Seeing you.
You don't have to.
Thanks
give
for
me an
coming in.
application.
Okay, good.
All right,
Yours is good.
can we move along
Good
to
night,
digitalizing the town records project?
I
I
think
hate
Ken has
to,
a question.
Whose question?
I'd
Who's got a
like to,
question?
I'd like to submit an excerpt of the Chapter 44B law that we're subject to, just to put it on the record. And maybe I could have the screen share for a moment.
You have it.
Would it make more sense to submit this on the record for the public hearing?
It would, I just want.
Oh,
well,
go ahead. Let's have a look at it.
Let's just have a look at it right now.
I'll allow it.
He keeps saying that it's not a
So this is a section of 44B, and it talks about blah, 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 funds shall not be used for maintenance. And then under definitions, it defines maintenance as incidental repairs which neither materially add to the value of the property nor appreciably prolong the property's life, but they keep it in a condition of fitness and readiness. And so the question, and there's a piece of case law that was called up in the same discussion. And it says, if it returns the property to the state it was in before the situation prompting the expenditure arose and does not make the property more valuable, more useful, or longer lived, it's usually considered a repair and thus maintenance. And so does it appreciably prolong the property's life, or just return it to the state it was in before the situation prompting the expenditure arose, as in the last time it was painted?
Ken, can I ask this section here? Is there any stipulation there as to if you're looking at a older building, at one that's protected?
No, but it just says, does this make it substantively more valuable than it was before it needed painting? It makes it the same value it was last time it was painted.
Okay, my concern is that a lot of these can be just said, oh yeah, painting is always maintenance. But again, if you're painting a historical resource, then it's really different than if you're painting the schoolhouse.
But if the owners had painted it promptly every time it needed it.
Okay, then what's your point? It's again, you got to look at.
If you painted it every time it needed it, it'd be maintenance.
Mr. Chair, I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable talking this.
Anyway,
further
I just wanted to
without
put
Evan
this
here.
up there and just to sort of get it in the
Evan
record.
still
So
here.
if this can go into the record, then I've said all I care to say.
That's fine. I'll put it in the record. Anything else? Can we move along to the digitalizing, which I said very well that time, town records project?
Jim, may I just, can you send me that and I'll put it
I
in the
will.
minutes?
I'll send it to you right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does it prolong the life? Any maintenance doesn't prolong the life.
Sure,
of course,
it does.
maintenance prolongs the life.
And Joanne, once you get it, can you just forward it out to the entire committee?
That sentence,
I'll just copy it to everybody.
I don't think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone going to be down there with you or with us on Zoom
Huh?
Down where?
to talk about the digitalizing?
Oh, Paul is. Candy's away because of school vacation week, but Paul said he could speak to it.
So,
You're up, Paul.
all right, so this proposal was submitted by Candy, and it is for digitizing town records so that they can not need to be accessed as much, because every time you have to access a historical document, you put wear and tear on that document, and the intent of this is to eliminate that. In addition, it will make it easier for folks to be able to access these documents, being able to do it online, as opposed to having to come into the office and make an appointment and open up the vault and find what it is that you're looking for. It'll be a much easier process for people to be able to avail themselves of these records. The one question that I had in looking at their contract and going through it, they go into great lengths about talking about how they'll come and pack up all the documents, because what they will do is bring it back to their facility to do the digitization process. But it never talked about bringing back those documents. And there was some concern because they have to take them out in order to go through the process. And how were those going to be returned? Would they be returned in the same order that they were picked up? Or are they going to come back in a box and they need to be all pulled out and put back together again? The last note I had...
Paul, can I ask you something, Paul?
Yeah.
Do you know, are they talking about everything that's in the town clerk's office or just the things that have already been protected?
This is beyond what the other archival project was. This is all the records that they have in there. And the price that they have here is not for everything, but I'm sorry, I do not know the exact percentage, but I'm sure we could get that from Candy. It's a large percentage of the documents that are there.
So again, would she be comfortable releasing things to be digitalized that have not been protected?
It's a good question that we can pose to her.
This company, then they're going to take them apart to digitalize them.
Yeah, they have to take them apart. So
didn't we just rebind them?
Yeah, but she's not talking about the archival ones. There are other documents that she's looking at. If you read through the actual application, she talks about what they are, and they also had a proposal, which we'll go into that too. So, I'm trying to see where the actual documents are.
It doesn't really say.
Yeah.
Binders, sound books.
She's got smaller documents, plans in racks, flat and folded large. So we could ask her for that clarity on what exactly it is she's looking to include.
Since Andy's not here, well, I'm sorry, Rich has his hand up. Jim.
Yep. Well, I just want to make sure that Paul's finished first.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Rich, you're muted. You're muted, which is probably a gift to us all, Rich. Unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted now, Jim.
All right.
No, Paul answered my question, and I thank him for doing that.
Thanks, Rich.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm thinking that there's probably not a lot more that we can find out about this with Candy not being here.
Justin has his hand up.
Okay. Justin.
Yep.
It's so unusual that we hear from you at a meeting.
So, I think I know the answer to this, Paul, but just to ask it, can you briefly touch on how this is different than previous conversations we've had about we can't create digital records of stuff? Like, there was conversations like we can't put together a digital thing of historic documents in our past discussions, but when I looked at this, that's what my first thought went to, and then I was looking a little bit more into the CPA language and other towns approved things, and it seems like this is fairly common. So I just didn't know if there was. If you don't know what I'm talking about from the past, then I can move on. But
I don't recall having a conversation about it before, but
there was one. I'm wondering if this is it. When we did the historic resources inventory.
I think it was the first year I was on when we talked about that inventory. Right,
and they came to us. They came to the committee after the approval, and asked if they could also digitize it. And I think at that time, it wasn't that it's not allowable, it was that you don't have enough money. And you didn't put it in the original scope.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I remember digitizing coming up around that project, but I thought it had to do with not enough funds.
Yeah. What I was remembering was something about like we can't. It was the idea of the create verb. Like we can't create something. So, and it's creating a digital record out of stuff. That was how I interpret it and remember it. I could be also thinking wrong here, but I was just.
Again, I think it's a good question, but I think it's one that Candy's got to answer.
Yeah.
I'm not
Let's do it
entirely
and
sure
answer
that
that.
that might have been some of the early documents were so feeble that they couldn't be digitalized because they couldn't really see them, but they still wanted to preserve the page.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that might have been it.
Yeah. Either way, my current understanding is that this is within the CPAs from what I looked up, but I wasn't sure how.
Joanne's going to talk
Do
to
you
Stuart
want me to
anyway,
ask
so
Stuart
just
about this as well?
yeah, just validate that it's an acceptable use. I believe it is too, but
Oh, as do I. Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Yes,
So,
Joanne.
since Candy's not here, Paul, are you going to get these 4 questions to her, or do you want me to?
if you'll send them to me, I can track
Okay.
her down for you, so you don't. Have
All right,
to do
so we're just gonna ask her what percentage of the documents are being digitized? How will the documents come back to her? What are they doing around that? How many would she be willing to release to the vendor at one time? And what's the complete list of documents she's looking to digitize? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll email
Thank
them
you.
to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
I-
already given me some of that, but it's in an email, so I can pull it.
And
Oh,
if she's
okay,
not digitizing some, why isn't she? That's, it's, are they, like Jim said, they're so old, so they're so fragile, or is it just for another reason? Because it's like, should we not be digitizing all of them if we're digitizing most
I
of
believe
them?
that's her intent.
Okay.
All right, I'm a little annoyed that the first 2 times I tried to say digitizing, I couldn't, and no one else has had that problem. So. All right, the sunset extension on the weights and measures project. Why is that here? Isn't that project done?
I can speak to that.
Thank you.
The electrician is still not put in the outlet. The library was going to have several things done rather than just do this one project, one electrical outlet. And it's more of a insurance. We feel like the electrical outlet will get installed. We feel like we'll be able to hire the mover to get it moved. We feel like this will all be, and I say we, the historical commission, feels like this, Don Clark is the one that's relayed this to me, that this will all take place by June 30th. But greater things have happened. COVID has surfaced its ugly head. So they just want to be extra sure that they get this finished. And if they do, then we'll pass over it. It's just.
And that's fine. We can always pass over it. Very good. Thank you. The Springtown meeting warrant articles. Who's on?
Jim, if I may, I put together the draft language for the Affordable Housing Trust article to transfer the reserve, and then the article for the CPC reserves where you create the historic affordable housing open space reserve, the budgeted reserve, the admin expenses, and then the 2 bond payments. I sent these to Ken, and he's working, as he mentioned, with Mary Lauria on them. I kind of did it just so that we would make sure I could get you guys thinking about them, really. I don't know that there's a big discussion item around it quite yet. We'll have the numbers, Ken, for March, the March meeting? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I've got it mostly filled in now.
Are things better now, Ken, than before?
Excuse me?
This process that we're talking about here, are things better now than they were a couple of years ago?
Yes, they are.
Okay,
And we're just paying a lot more attention to what goes in and out.
thank you. Okay, the Robinson property, I know we talked a little bit about that right at the very beginning, and I guess what I'm hearing is that there's nothing new, right?
No.
Sandy's given us the, I don't know, and Ken's shaking his head, so
Nothing
let's
new.
move along. The CPA funding application on the website.
Yes, so this came up during this round of funding. The PDF, the fillable PDF on the website was doing something wonky. And I couldn't fix it because I don't have Adobe on this laptop. I'm gonna be getting that, but by the time this all got figured out, it was like the application submission period was over. And I had given everybody a Word document to use. Questions came up. Amy Marr had said to me she actually preferred the Word document because it allowed her to then send it like to Dr. Cummings and to other people to review, to edit, to add to, whereas the fillable PDF doesn't allow for that. I talked to Evan a little bit too about could we use Viewpoint, the online permitting process, in some way, get the application up on that, because that would then facilitate it going to different town departments if necessary. So the whole point of this being on here is just to let you know there was this issue. I'm still looking into it, and I think this is a perfect item that will fall under the update of the CPA plan in the summer. Because
Thank you.
we'll figure out it, by then I will have more information, you can figure out an answer, figure out a way to move forward, and it'll be in time for the fall funding process.
And are we gonna have an item on the town meeting that will officially identify the meaning of wonky?
Yes. It just seemed to be the
Right,
best
'cause I
word
think
that I
that's gonna
could
be
come up
pretty
with
important.
that wasn't considered foul.
John Stevens.
I noticed in speaking about the applications, and I'm not sure why this happens, Joanne.
Yep.
But on Evan's application for South Grafton Community House, it's probably like 10 pages of our rules, and
I know.
the same thing I think on the South Grafton playground. There's a lot of stuff that they don't need to copy. They don't need to. Somehow it's getting included with the application.
It's when Roberta created that application, she put that all in there. That like the committee approved that. I think it's just one of those.
Okay.
You know, at the time, yeah, it looked good and everything, and then you go to use it, and you're like, yeah, this is like too much paper.
No, it's just they're just printing out a lot of. That's all I was noticing. That was just printing out a whole bunch of stuff we don't need.
Right. So this
Yeah.
is a perfect thing to look at. You know, as part of the plan review. Justin was going to say something.
Thanks.
I think.
It's not important. We can move on.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Thank you on that. Projects updates, Town Records Archival Program project. Anyone?
So
No.
she hasn't mentioned anything more on that to me. She was focused on this other application. So they're continuing to move forward, but I haven't gotten an update as to where they stand yet. We can have that
Thank you.
next month when she's here.
The historic gravestones, I believe that's Rich.
Yes, I got a
What do we
few
got?
good things. I got a few good things for us.
Do the second
first of
one
all-
first.
Pardon?
Do the second one first.
Okay. Second one, it's covered for the winter and won't get snow on it tomorrow.
Okay.
But we have to find out, well, I have to find out what type of stone it is, how long it is, the length. Because I was told it could be up to 8 feet long. And the gentleman I was talking to from Boston Monuments, he asked what kind of stone it was, and I said, I don't know, but I do have a sample of the stone from another one that broke off, and it doesn't have anything on it. And we kind of matched it up, and it looks exactly the same stone, so I have that to give him. He doesn't want to come out until the spring thaw, because he wants to know exactly how long it is, what he's going to be working with, for he can give us a price. Now, do we want a price of the whole length of the stone, or do we want to go down just enough as a regular grave marker when we return the stone down there? That's one of my
Let's ask him for both. Let's
Okay.
ask him for both.
And the other thing is, he suggested if we can't get through Mass Historical Society, would we be willing to cap it? And that's by putting a Lexan, I'm sorry, not Lexan, cap over it. Yes, Sandy.
That's usually what I do, Rich.
She's not
I'm
muted.
sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying to be funny. Wax on, wax on.
Wax on.
Wax on, wax
Sorry.
off. All right.
Sorry.
I like that. That's good. But anyways, we could, he suggested if the town doesn't want us to, between the town and the state doesn't want us to move it, that we could actually put a cap over it to protect it, seal the stone, clean the stone, seal it, and then put this cap over it made out of Lexan, and it would have a foundation base like a house on the bottom. It would be the shape of the stone, and it would have 2 screws on each end that would be capped, and it would be vented. He
Well,
said,
again, let's get a price on it.
yeah,
let's
because
get a
he
price
says
on it.
replacing the stone could be over $20,000.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
No,
John Stevens. You're muted.
Oh, I think my hand was from
From before? Okay,
time before. I got my hand up in the air and I forgot to put it back down. Sorry.
okay. So Rich, you think you can get those estimates from him?
yeah, he wants to come out, and he said when the weather is good and the ground's not frozen, for he can put his little stick in the
Yeah.
ground to see how long it is, and go from there.
Okay, so we'll let him know when he can put his stick in the ground. Thank you. The Grafton Common,
Nothing really new.
Paul, you're on again.
Yep, nothing really new to report. We're pretty much where we were. Still trying to coordinate with Evan. I wish I had had some time to actually talk to him today, because we're trying to make sure that we understand what's already been ordered by the town regarding the motor vehicle accident damage. There were 2 actual motor vehicle accidents last year on the common. There were 6 granite posts that were destroyed. There was a number of railings that were destroyed. We also have the 2 pillars from the archway across from the inn that need to be replaced. Potentially the archway itself. It's very hard to tell if it was damaged or not, and if it got bent, then it may not be able to be used. So we're just trying to coordinate all those things to make sure that we order what exactly is needed. And some of it has to come from a quarry, and they have a vendor that they work through in the town for that. I did find out that the Milford pink granite is no longer available. They found something comparable to it, and I don't know the name off the top of my head, but they found it's got the same pinkish color to it apparently, but I wouldn't call it salmon. So they do have that, and I've been working through the Department of Public Works trying to get some clarity around that. We're pretty close, and we're on target for moving forward in the spring when the weather breaks. So
Do you have any, what's your comfort level at all that there might be able to be a 4th of July celebration there?
I'm optimistic that we'll have that. Will everything be there? Like, for instance, there's there's a long tail on the lanterns. Well, there's only one lantern, but for the archway, the one that was damaged, that's a 10 to 12 week process. So that may not be up, but we'll certainly be able to use the common. The hope is that the work on the bandstand will be done by then, and the majority of the work will be completed by then.
That's good news. Thank you very much. Weights and measures, we already know. We're waiting for a plug. Lions Club is the same as last month with all of the weather. There's been no other movement there. The Cisco Homestead, I would imagine, is probably pretty much the same.
Yeah, I don't have any update today.
Thank you. The recreation ADA projects.
The last update we had was that they were kind of doing a punch list and they were actually gonna have to put some recreation funds in to finalize everything, so.
Okay. So the weed abatement, doesn't snow kill the weeds?
Yeah, so they're still pulling together the bid. It's a slow process, but they hope to have that bid out soon. And I did speak to someone a few weeks ago from Shrewsbury, just calling about invoicing and how they, do all that when a vendor is selected.
Okay, thank you very much. 95 North Street.
The bids are due back on March 22nd. The RFP went out.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have a motion on the floor?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Any second? Okay, the motion's been made and second. Sandy?
Yes.
Sandy Brock is yes. Jim Gallagher is yes. Ken Holberger?
Yes.
Ken Holberger, yes. Brooke Paget?
Yes.
Brooke Paget is yes. Paul Scarlett?
Scarlet Eye.
Paul Scarlett, aye. John Stevens?
Aye.
John Stevens, aye. Fair travels there, John. Richard Whitney?
Aye.
Richard Whitney, aye. And the ever-loving Justin Wood?
Aye.
Justin Wood is aye. We are adjourned.